First contact. The Nexus fleet of the Valdorian Empire moved silently through the void, their crystalline ships gleaming under distant starlight. High Admiral Crixus stood aboard the command deck of the Stellar Sovereign, his violet eyes fixed on the endless expanse before him. The fleet had been mapping uncharted regions of space for 3 cycles, expanding the Empire's influence with each passing day. High Admiral, First Officer Tellera's voice cut through his contemplation. Our long-range scanners have detected an anomaly. Her silver-scaled hands moved across the holographic display, bringing up a detailed projection of their discovery. Crixus approached the display, his ornate armor catching the soft blue light of the bridge's illumination. Classification? Unknown, sir. The object appears to be a vessel, but its design doesn't match any known species in our database. It's old. Very old. The projection showed a massive ship, its dark hull bearing the scars of countless years drifting through space. Despite its age, there was something about its design that spoke of lethal precision. Angular plates of armor covered its frame, and what appeared to be weapon ports lined its sides in perfect symmetrical patterns. Position? Holding steady at the edge of the Varan Nebula, sir. No signs of active power signatures, but... Tellera hesitated, her brow furrowing. The material composition is unlike anything we've encountered. Crixus felt a familiar thrill of discovery course through him. The Valdorian Empire had conquered 1,000 worlds, their technological superiority unchallenged across known space. An unknown vessel of unique composition was exactly the kind of find that could advance their civilization even further. Bring us closer, he commanded. Prepare the quantum analysis array. I want every detail of that ship's construction documented. The Stellar Sovereign glided forward, its escort vessels maintaining perfect formation. As they drew closer, the true scale of the derelict vessel became apparent. It dwarfed their largest ships, its hull stretching nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Sir, Tellera's voice carried an edge of concern, the ship bears markings. They appear to be in an ancient script, but our linguistic system is detecting similarities to known human languages. Crixus's antenna twitched with interest. Humans were a relatively new species to interstellar travel, confined mostly to their local cluster. They were considered primitive by Valdorian standards, barely worth noting in the Empire's expansive records. Humans? Out here? He studied the vessel with renewed curiosity. Impossible. This ship is far too advanced for their capabilities. Run a full-spectrum scan. Let's see what secrets this relic holds. The quantum analysis array hummed to life, bathing the ancient warship in invisible waves of energy. Data began streaming across the bridge's displays, showing layer after layer of the vessel's construction. High Admiral, the science officer, Verax, called out, his voice tight with excitement. These readings, they're extraordinary. The hull is composed of materials that shouldn't exist naturally. The molecular structure suggests artificial manipulation at the quantum level. Crixus moved to Verax's station, studying the readings himself. Explain. The entire ship appears to be constructed from programmable matter, sir. Each molecule can be reorganized on command, allowing the hull to adapt and repair itself. But more than that. Verax's fingers flew across his console, bringing up new data streams. There are energy pathways throughout the structure that suggest weapons capabilities far beyond our current understanding. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. If humans had possessed this level of technology in their past, what else might they be capable of? Sir, Tellera's voice cracked with sudden urgency. The ship, it's responding to our scan. Before Crixus could react, a pulse of energy rippled through space from the ancient vessel. The Stellar Sovereign systems flickered, and for a brief moment, every screen on the bridge displayed the same message in clear Valdorian script. Unauthorized scan detected. Initiating defense protocols. Crixus felt his blood run cold as the supposedly dormant warship began to move, its hull shifting and flowing like liquid metal. Weapon ports that had seemed dead and ancient burst with inner light, and energy readings that defied comprehension began emanating from its core. "All ships, battle stations," he commanded, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew they had made a terrible mistake. This was no derelict, no abandoned relic of a primitive species. They had stumbled upon something far more significant, a sentinel of humanity's true power, waiting silently in the dark of space for unwary intruders. The first shots were about to be fired, and High Admiral Crixus realized with growing dread that the Valdorian Empire was about to learn a harsh lesson about underestimating their galactic neighbors. The Awakening. The ancient human warship's transformation was unlike anything the Valdorian fleet had ever witnessed. Its hull rippled with waves of silvery light, dormant systems awakening with a power that made their most advanced sensors scream in protest. High Admiral Crixus watched in growing horror as the vessel's weapon ports began to pulse with an eerie blue radiance. Multiple energy signatures detected, Verax reported, his normally steady voice trembling. "The ship's power output. It's beyond our scale of measurement. These readings suggest it could power an entire star system." Before Crixus could respond, a holographic projection materialized on the bridge of the Stellar Sovereign. A figure stood before them, transparent but impossibly detailed, a woman in a crisp military uniform, her bearing that of someone accustomed to absolute authority. "I am Arya," the hologram announced, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance. "Advanced Response Intelligence Algorithm, Commanding Officer of the TDF Vigilant. You have activated this vessel's defense protocols through unauthorized scanning attempts. This action has been logged as a potential act of aggression against the Terran Defense Force." Crixus stepped forward, his diplomatic training taking over. "I am High Admiral Crixus of the Valdorian Empire. We mean no aggression. We discovered your vessel and merely sought to understand. Your empire's history of conquest is well documented," Arya interrupted, her expression hardening. "The Vigilant was placed here as a deterrent against exactly this type of expansion. Your scans have provided sufficient evidence of hostile intent." The hologram flickered, and suddenly tactical displays throughout the bridge showed hundreds of new signatures emerging from within the Vigilant. Smaller craft, each one radiating energy levels that matched the Valdorians' most powerful warships, began taking up defensive positions around the ancient vessel. "How?" Telera whispered, staring at the readings in disbelief. "Those ships, they're materializing from within the Vigilant structure. The hull itself is generating them." Crixus understood now, the programmable matter wasn't just for repairs. The entire ship was a self-contained fleet production facility, capable of generating its own escort vessels from its very substance. The technological gap between their civilizations wasn't just significant, it was astronomical. "Your scan has revealed much about your own capabilities," Arya continued, her artificial eyes seeming to pierce through Crixus. "Your weapons would be ineffective against even our most basic defenses. The Vigilant's hull alone could absorb the combined firepower of your entire fleet without suffering significant damage." As if to demonstrate this point, one of the newly formed escort vessels fired a brief pulse toward a distant asteroid. The space rock didn't explode, it simply ceased to exist, the very atoms of its structure disappearing in a flash of light that left no trace behind. "By the eternal stars," Verax breathed, checking and rechecking his readings. "That weapon. It didn't destroy the asteroid. It removed it from our dimension entirely." Crixus felt the weight of his mistake pressing down upon him. The Valdorian Empire had assumed their technology represented the peak of possible advancement. Now they faced a human vessel that treated the laws of physics as mere suggestions. "The Terran Defense Force does not seek conflict," Arya stated, her tone becoming slightly less severe. "However, we are prepared for it. You have two options, High Admiral. Retreat immediately to coordinates we will provide, or face the consequences of further hostile action. Throughout the bridge, officers watched in stunned silence as tactical displays showed more and more capabilities of the Vigilant coming online. What they had initially thought was a simple warship was revealing itself to be something far more terrifying, a mobile fortress capable of reshaping the very fabric of spacetime. The ship's energy core, Verax reported, his voice barely above a whisper. It's not just a power source. It appears to be, sir, it appears to be a contained stellar mass. They've harnessed the power of an entire star within that vessel. Crixus felt his pride warring with his survival instinct. The Valdorian Empire had never retreated, never shown weakness in the face of any opponent. But as he watched the Vigilance escort fleet continue to grow, each new vessel demonstrating capabilities that defied their understanding of physics, he realized this was no ordinary opponent. Sir, Tellera said softly, we're detecting similar energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range. More human ships, many more. The hologram of Arya seemed to smile slightly, though there was no warmth in the expression. Your scans have alerted other sentinels in this sector, High Admiral. The Vigilant is not alone in its watch. Even now, the rest of the fleet approaches. I suggest you make your decision quickly. The Valdorian Empire had prided itself on being the most advanced civilization in known space. But as High Admiral Crixus watched the human warship continue its awakening, he understood with crystal clarity that they had been living in ignorance. They weren't the most advanced civilization, they had simply never encountered humanity's true capabilities before. And now, as the ancient warship's full power thrummed through space, sending shivers through the fabric of reality itself, Crixus realized they might not survive long enough to report their discovery. The time for pride had passed. Now, only survival mattered. The message. The tension aboard the Stellar Sovereign reached its peak as space itself seemed to tear open around them. Through massive quantum breaches emerged 3 more human vessels, each as imposing as the Vigilant. Their arrival sent cascading waves of energy that made the Valdorian ship sensors fluctuate wildly. Fleet Commander Morgan Wells, Terran Defense Force, a new voice announced across all communication channels. The holographic projection on the bridge shifted, and beside Arya appeared a tall woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that held centuries of experience. Her uniform bore markings that even the Valdorian cultural database couldn't interpret. Your intrusion into restricted space has triggered our defense network, Commander Wells continued, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. The Vigilant was merely the first line of defense. Now you face the full response of the Terran fleet. High Admiral Crixus stood his ground, though he felt his officers' growing fear. Commander Wells, we are the Valdorian Empire, masters of 1,000 worlds. We did not intend to. 1,000 worlds? Wells interrupted, a hint of amusement in her tone. High Admiral, let me be clear, your empire's extent is known to us. We've been watching your expansion for centuries. The reason you've never encountered us before is simple, we didn't want you to. The tactical displays updated, showing the true extent of the human fleet's capabilities. Each of the new vessels was generating its own gravity well, bending spacetime around them in ways that defied conventional physics. Sir, Verax reported, his voice shaking, the human ships, they're not just manipulating space. They're creating localized temporal fields. They exist partially outside of normal time. Commander Wells nodded at the observation. Your science officer is perceptive. Yes, our ships operate on principles your civilization won't discover for another 1,000 years, at your current rate of development. The Vigilant you encountered is actually one of our older vessels, left here as a simple warning beacon. The implications of her words struck Crixus like a physical blow. If this ancient, warning beacon, could outmatch his entire fleet, what were their modern ships capable of? The Terran Defense Force maintains peace across 37 galaxies, High Admiral, Wells continued. We allow developing civilizations to grow, to make their own choices. But when those choices threaten the stability of spacetime itself, as your empire's expansion soon would, we intervene. Tellera's console suddenly lit up with new alerts. High Admiral. We're detecting quantum signatures everywhere. Hundreds of them, thousands. They're all around us. The holographic display expanded, showing the true scope of the human presence. Hidden behind veils of twisted spacetime were countless vessels, stations, and installations, an entire civilization that had existed alongside them, unseen and unknown. Your empire's tendency to shoot first and study later has been noted, well said, her expression stern. We've watched you consume younger civilizations, strip their worlds of resources, and leave devastation in your wake. That ends today. Arya's hologram stepped forward. We calculate a 99% probability that the Valdorian Empire will attempt to militarize against the Terran Defense Force after this encounter. Let me assure you, that would be inadvisable. To demonstrate her point, one of the human vessels released a tiny probe. It approached a nearby moon, no larger than a small shuttle. With a pulse of energy that barely registered on the Valdorian sensors, the probe transformed the entire moon into a cloud of elementary particles, then reconstructed it with different geological compositions. That, Commander Wells explained calmly, was our terraforming technology from 5 centuries ago. Would you like to see what we can do now? Crixus felt the foundations of his worldview crumbling. The Valdorian Empire had always assumed they were approaching the pinnacle of possible technology. Now he understood, they were children playing with toys, and they had just attracted the attention of beings so advanced they might as well be gods. You have a choice, High Admiral, Wells continued. The Valdorian Empire can either accept its place in the greater cosmos and learn to coexist with other species, or it can continue its current path and face extinction. We are not cruel, but we are absolute in our duty to maintain cosmic order. The bridge of the Stellar Sovereign fell silent as the crew waited for their admiral's response. Crixus looked at his officers, seeing in their eyes the same realization he had reached. They had stumbled into something far larger than themselves, and their next words would determine the fate of their entire civilization. The humans hadn't just demonstrated superior technology, they had revealed that the universe was far more complex and populated than the Valdorians had ever imagined. Their empire wasn't the crowning achievement of intelligent life, it was merely one of countless civilizations developing under the watchful eyes of humanity's ancient guardians. The battle. Pride can be a dangerous thing. Even faced with overwhelming evidence of humanity's superiority, there were those among the Valdorian fleet who couldn't accept their newfound position in the cosmic hierarchy. Second Fleet Commander Razix, aboard the warship Dominion, made the decision that would be remembered in history as the spark that demonstrated humanity's true power. For the glory of the Empire. Razix's battle cry echoed across the fleet's communication channels as the Dominion's primary weapons array powered up. The massive warship turned its guns toward the nearest human vessel, unleashing a barrage of antimatter torpedoes. Razix, stand down. High Admiral Crixus's order came too late. The torpedoes streaked across space toward their target, the human ship Hyperion. What happened next would be seared into the memories of every Valdorian who witnessed it. The torpedoes, each capable of destroying a small moon, simply stopped existing halfway to their target. No explosion, no deflection, they vanished as if they had never been fired at all. Commander Wells's hologram showed no reaction beyond a slight frown. Arya, if you would, she said quietly. The AI's response was immediate. The Vigilant's surface rippled, and suddenly the space around the Dominion warped. The massive Valdorian warship found itself encased in a bubble of altered spacetime, its weapons fire curving back on itself, its shields bending under forces they were never designed to resist. Temporal causality inversion engaged, Arya reported calmly. The Dominion is now experiencing every weapon's discharge it has ever performed, simultaneously. The Valdorian crew watched in horror as their most powerful warship began to tear itself apart, not from human weapons, but from its own accumulated firepower across time. Thousands of weapon discharges, from the ship's first test firing to its latest attack, all converged at a single point in time. By the void, Telera whispered, her sensors struggling to process what they were seeing. They're not just manipulating space, they're weaponizing time itself. The Dominion's destruction wasn't violent or explosive. Instead, the ship seemed to age thousands of years in moments, its hull corroding and dissolving until nothing remained but scattered atoms. The crew, however, materialized safely aboard other Valdorian vessels, transported through space-time moments before their ship's destruction. "We do not take life needlessly," Commander Wells explained, her voice carrying a hint of sadness. "But we will not tolerate aggression. Your empire must learn this lesson." Crixus watched as more human ships emerged from quantum space, each one displaying capabilities that made his fleet's most advanced technology look primitive in comparison. Some vessels seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously, while others appeared to be constructed from pure energy rather than matter. "Sir," Verax called out, his voice trembling. "The human ships, they're not just warships. Each one appears to be capable of reconstructing entire solar systems. They're not just a military force, they're gardeners of reality itself." The tactical displays showed the true extent of human manipulation of spacetime. The fabric of reality around their ships flowed like water, responding to their commands with precise control. What the Valdorians had thought was empty space was revealed to be a complex network of quantum tunnels, temporal corridors, and dimensional folds, all part of humanity's ancient infrastructure. "Your empire stands at a crossroads," Commander Wells continued. "The choice before you is simple but absolute. You can embrace a new path, one of cooperation, learning, and growth, or you can continue to resist and face the consequences." As if to emphasize her point, one of the human vessels released a pulse of energy that swept through the Valdorian fleet. Every weapon system, from the smallest point defense laser to the largest capital ship cannon, transformed into harmless matter. Generations of military technology neutralized in an instant. "We offer you knowledge," Arya added, her holographic form shifting to display complex mathematical equations that made the Valdorian scientists' eyes widen in recognition. "Your civilization has potential. But you must learn to crawl before you can walk, and walk before you can run." The equations showed fundamental flaws in the Valdorian understanding of physics, flaws that, if left uncorrected, would have led to catastrophic failures in their future technological development. The humans weren't just defeating them, they were teaching them. High Admiral Crixus stood on his bridge, watching as the remnants of his once proud fleet drifted powerless in space. The lesson was clear: the Valdorian Empire had reached too far, too fast, driven by pride and ambition rather than wisdom and understanding. Now they faced beings who had mastered not just space and time, but the very foundations of reality itself. The revelation. High Admiral Crixus stood in a chamber that shouldn't have been possible. At Commander Wells's invitation, he had been transported aboard the Hyperion, into a vast observatory that seemed to exist both inside and outside of normal spacetime. The walls showed real-time views of thousands of galaxies, each one under humanity's watchful protection. "Your people call this sector of space unexplored," Commander Wells said, gesturing to the swirling cosmic display around them. "In reality, it's one of the most carefully managed regions in the local group of galaxies. What you see as empty space is filled with our monitoring stations, temporal anchors, and quantum stabilizers." The display shifted, focusing on the Valdorian Empire's territory. Crixus watched in amazement as layers of hidden infrastructure became visible, vast networks of human technology that had been there all along, invisible to their sensors. "You've been watching us," Crixus said quietly. "All this time, monitoring our development." "Not just watching," Arya's hologram appeared beside them. "We've been protecting you." Your scientists never wondered why your empire never encountered any truly hostile species? Why you never faced extinction-level threats from space? We've been quietly diverting comets, neutralizing gamma-ray bursts, and containing aggressive civilizations that would have destroyed you before you could defend yourselves. The revelation hit Crixus like a physical blow. The Valdorian Empire had attributed their success to their own superiority, never realizing they had been living under humanity's protection all along. But why? He asked. Why allow us to develop at all if you have such power? Commander Wells smiled, and for the first time, there was genuine warmth in her expression. Because that's our purpose. Humanity reached this level of advancement eons ago, and we made a choice. Instead of conquering or controlling, we decided to become guardians, teachers, shepherds of developing civilizations. The observatory's display shifted again, showing countless worlds teeming with life, each at different stages of development. Some were just beginning to form primitive tools, while others were on the verge of achieving faster-than-light travel. Your empire's aggression forced our hand, Arya explained. You were approaching technologies that, without proper understanding, could have torn holes in the fabric of reality. We couldn't allow that to happen, not just for your sake, but for all the civilizations around you. A new image appeared, showing the future that would have unfolded without human intervention. The Valdorian Empire's experiments with spacetime would have created a cascade of temporal paradoxes, eventually leading to the collapse of entire galactic sectors. This is why we placed sentinels like the Vigilant, Wells continued. Not as weapons, but as safeguards. Your scan of that ship was always meant to trigger this meeting. We simply didn't expect it to happen through an act of military aggression. Crixus watched as the display showed more of humanity's work throughout the cosmos. They weren't just preserving and protecting, they were nurturing the very evolution of intelligence itself. Each civilization was being carefully guided toward a greater understanding of the universe, all part of a grand design millions of years in the making. What happens now? Crixus asked, his voice barely a whisper. Now, you have a choice, Wells replied. The Valdorian Empire can join us in our mission. We can teach you, help you understand the true nature of space, time, and reality. Your people have great potential, you simply need to learn to use it wisely. Arya's hologram gestured, and a small crystalline device appeared in front of Crixus. This contains the fundamental principles of temporal mechanics, quantum engineering, and dimensional physics, written in terms your scientists can understand. Consider it a first step. But remember, Wells added, her expression becoming serious again, this knowledge comes with responsibility. You must abandon your empire's policy of conquest and domination. The universe is not meant to be ruled, but understood and preserved. Crixus picked up the crystal, feeling the weight of the decision before him. The Valdorian Empire had always sought power through force, but now they were being offered something far greater, the chance to become part of humanity's grand mission to shepherd the development of conscious life throughout the cosmos. Your people stand at a threshold, Arya said softly. You can remain as you are, bound by pride and limited understanding, or you can step into a larger universe. The choice must be yours. As Crixus stared out at the vast expanse of space, seeing it truly for the first time, he understood that everything his people had believed about their place in the universe had been wrong. They weren't conquerors or masters, they were students, barely beginning to understand the true nature of existence. The human warship they had scanned wasn't just a sentinel, it was an invitation, a test, a chance to prove they were ready for greater knowledge. In their arrogance, they had almost missed the opportunity it represented. We choose to learn, Crixus said finally, his voice firm with conviction. The Valdorian Empire will change. We will become worthy of the knowledge you offer. Commander Wells nodded, satisfied. Then let the real journey begin. Welcome to the universe, High Admiral. It's far more wonderful than you ever imagined.